so now we're gonna start with Docker Advanced. As we have already aware about the Docker, what is container, and we have also learned about working of Dockers in the previous lecture. Okay, so now we're gonna start with the Docker volumes and how we used to manage Docker containers and volumes. Okay, so first thing, scaling with Docker storage solution. Explore the different types of storage options available in the Docker ecosystem. Okay, in Docker ecosystem, there are multiple types of storage we gonna use in a future project and in a future slides. Okay, so now what is a Docker volume? Docker volume is basically a volume that has been implemented for a particular containers. Okay, as you can see in this diagram, Docker container has been assigned to a particular Docker volume. Okay, every container have their own particular volume which they can be used for the application deployment and to use for the further deployments. Okay, now types of Docker storage. What are the Docker storage or types? First one is volume, second one is bind mounts. Volume we have already seen in the previous slide. Volumes are Docker recommended method for storing persistent data. What is persistent data? For an example, I have a server, EC2 server. Okay, in that I had deployed my container and my Docker application, and I had mounted my Docker application to the persistent data, persistent volume basically. Okay, so what persistent volume will do? If I'm gonna delete my EC2 server, okay, if I want to delete my EC2 server, then to persistent volume will gonna store all of my data for a future use. Okay, I can use that persistent volume for multiple other servers I'm going to deploy in a future. Okay, so this is called as persistent volume. Now bind mounts. What are the bind mounts? Bind mounts are basically if I have deployed my application, okay, I have downloaded one of the application, Nginx, Apache, HTTPD, NPM, Java. Okay, after that downloading the application, I used to mount one of its file. Okay, mapping a host machine file to the with the help of bind mounts. Okay, what it will do? It will gonna mount that particular application to a mounted data. It will gonna create a particular volume for that particular application. Now, how to create a Docker volume? First, we used to create a volume. Docker volume create is a command to create a volume. Then I used to inspect a volume. Inspect means after creating, I used to see, inspect or review my Docker volume that it is created properly or not. Okay, then list a volume. After creating and inspecting, I'm gonna just list my volume by using a command docker volume ls. Okay, now what is a Docker Compose? Okay, Docker Compose is basically used to host multiple containers in a single EC2 server. Okay, as you can see in this architecture, I had created one Docker Compose.yaml file. Okay, then we're gonna create a Docker Compose with this YAML file. With the help of Docker Compose, it will gonna host a multiple image. As you can see, Docker image, and Docker image. Okay, now there is multiple Docker image, and after that Docker image, that image has been converted to Docker containers. This all containers has been hosted to a single Docker Compose, and this Docker Compose has been hosted on a single EC2 server. Okay, the main purpose of Docker Compose is just to host a multiple containers in a single EC2 server. Okay, now defining a service using a YAML file. Okay, how we gonna define a service in a YAML file? Services like Nginx, Java, Apache, HTTPD, all of these services we used to define. Okay, because we need to deploy an application. Application can be deployed on service only, and the service can be either Nginx, Java, or Apache. Anything we can use. So that service name I'm gonna define in my service.yaml configuration. Okay, then that configuration, that YAML file we're gonna convert in a containers, specify the container for each services. Okay, then we're gonna create a dependencies, declare service dependencies. What are all the dependencies? Like I want to create a persistent volume or any other volume or any other dependency that I want to create for my application. Okay, now next. Okay, so now what we have learned in this lecture. Okay, the conclusion, you can take a key aspect from this lecture. Like what we have learned types of Docker volumes. Okay, what is bind, what is volume, what is persistence volume, how we used to create a service.yaml file, what are the services we can use in this YAML file. Okay, so you can take all of these keywords as a conclusion for this lecture. That's all. Thank you. So the thing which we have learned in the previous lecture, we're going to implement all of this thing in this project. Okay, regarding the volume, regarding the binding, then regarding the persistent volume, we are going to use all of these practicals in this working project. Okay, so we're going to start with the project. As you can see, we need one EC2 server. Okay, Linux server. Over here we're going to start with installing a Docker. As you can see, yum install Docker. It's going to install a Docker. Okay, with the help of this we're going to create all of us containers, Docker files, and etc. Okay, all the Docker commands will be used by Docker. Sudo service start, it will gonna start the Docker service. Okay, so to running multiple files, we need to start the Docker. User mode, we're gonna add a Docker EC2 user in a Docker group. Okay, then we're gonna download a Docker Compose by using a GitHub. Okay, this is a link you can use to download the Docker Compose in your EC2 server. Okay, the download has been completed. Now we're gonna start creating a Docker. Okay, now we're gonna provide a chmod execution permission to my Docker Compose. As you can see over here, chmod command, we have already learned about this. Now I'm going to create a Docker volume. The command is docker volume create. This is my volume name, my volume. Okay, my volume has been created. Now I'm going to create my directory to bind this. Okay, once my directory has been created, now I'm going to bind my directory by using a Python. First, for this I need to download a Python, yum python 3. Okay, this will going to download all of the Python packages which is required for this project. Okay, now I'm gonna bind this. As you can see, mount type is equal to bind source. This is a command we used to mount a directory that we had created by using mkdir. Okay, now the directory has been mounted. It is pulling multiple images. Now we're gonna create a YAML file. As we have seen that in this we need to provide a service. The service in this I am using is, okay, the file name is docker compose.yaml. Okay, now the service that I am using over here is Nginx. Okay, this is my service that I am going to use for this project. It will going to run on port 80, as you can see, and the storage I am using over here is Postgres. As you can see, this is my port number, this is my service name. Okay, so now we're going to save this file. Okay, so now I have saved a file. Okay, so now I have saved my file. Now I'm going to provide execution permission to that file, chmod 755. After that, I'm going to run my file. How you used to run a file? As we have seen, docker compose up is a command to run a .yaml file. Okay, as you can see, up -d we had started composing a Docker. Over here you can see the Nginx image has been pulling from a Docker hub. Okay, now Postgres image will also gonna pull because our database has been hosted on Postgres and the application has been hosted on Nginx. Okay, as you can see, both the root DB and root web 1 has been created. Now we're gonna see our application is working or not. For that, we need to provide all traffic in security group, as you have already seen in the AWS lectures. Okay, how we can do this? Edit inbound rules, just go add rules and add all traffic to the security group. Okay, now save the rule, then copy a public IP of your EC2 server, then paste it to the browser. Then we're gonna see our application. Okay, as you can see over here, welcome to Nginx. Our application has been hosted. Now my storage is in Postgres and my application is hosted using an Nginx. As you can see, I can able to see the page. I had hosted this application using a Docker Compose. Okay. Now next, what is a persistent volume? How can we use a persistent volume? If I want to, as you can see now, my application is in EC2 server. Okay. Now I want to, if I want to delete my EC2 server, then first I need to create a persistent volume. Then I can use this Docker Composer in any of the EC2 servers. Okay. Now we're gonna use one service that is called ECR, Elastic Container Registry. With the help of this, we can create a persistent volume for my Docker Compose that I have created. Now create a repository over here. Okay. Then put a name for my repository. You can put anything, my Docker repo. Okay. Rest keep all of this thing as default. Then click on create. Just enable scan on push. Okay, as you can see over here, my Docker repository has been created. Okay, now I'm gonna connect my Docker repository to my EC2 server. For this, first I need to create the secret key and access key. Okay, for my AWS account. Over here, I'm gonna put my access key. It will gonna create the communication between the AWS account and my EC2 user. Okay, EC2 server. Now I had created a connection between my AWS account and my EC2 server. Now I'm gonna create a connection between the ECR, Elastic Container Registry, and my EC2 server. Okay, the command is, as you can see over here, I'm just gonna put my ECS name and this command to create a connection between the ECR and the Docker. As you can see over here, it will show login succeed. That means our ECR and the EC2 server has been connected properly. Now we can push, pull and put the image in the ECR. Okay, it will work as a persistent volume. First I'm gonna see what Docker images are running in my server. Okay, to see that Docker image is a command, as we have seen this command in working of Docker. Okay, now as I can see over here, Docker image. Okay, Docker image will gonna show all of my images. Okay, over here you can see Nginx, BusyBox and Postgres. These are the Nginx and Postgres images are main images that are hosting an application. Okay, now we're gonna tag this repo. Okay, to push the image to ECR, we need to tag these images to the ECR. Okay, the tagging has been completed. Now we're gonna push the image. As you can see, Docker push is a command. This is my account ID and this is my ECR ARN number. Okay, you can get from the ECR service. As you can see over here, the pushing has been started to the Docker ECR. Okay, the service that we are using. Okay, the push has been completed. All of the Docker images has been pushed to the repository. As you can see over here, this is the latest image that I had created. Okay, by using this you can put this image in multiple servers. Okay, if you want to delete this server also, it will work as a persistent volume basically. So this is the working of all of the things that we have learned in the previous lecture. We had binded a volume, we had created a persistent volume, we have created a Docker volume, we had also created a YAML file. In that Nginx image was there. Okay, so by doing all of this thing, you can create a proper Docker application and a persistent volume for a backup and a storage. Okay, so that's all. Thank you.
To know more about Itvedant, visit our website